Taufetee.
Taufetee. Taufetee. Okay, welcome all and all to another episode of Aloha Anonymous podcast. I have my guest today, Matt Taufetee, and we also have Kehao, P. Maniho. And we're on the sidelines, secret and anonymous exclusive, Mr. Anonymous himself too, Chase Woodson. Anonymously, Olin. But yeah, how you guys doing today?
Good, great.
Yeah, amen. Always.
So yeah, if you guys seen Kehao, she's on top of our meta parables. Meta parables is where we talked about our people's experiences, and then ability for everyone who's listening to learn from it. But we have Kehao back in today, and she has her guest called Matt. Matt, what do we do? What do you do?
I'm the executive director and founder of an organization called the First L.A.P.
Hmm.
L.A.P is an acronym for Life After Prison. So this year makes 20 plus years I've been housing and mentoring men released from prison.
And then that's more of a story, yeah? How did it come about?
With my personal experience, growing up, not really having that relationship with my father, so everything started, from the household, to where I grew up with a lot of anger, constantly abused by our father, me and my siblings. And to top things off, he was a pastor. So growing up in church, I never really believed in God. I looked at God as a punishing God. So at the age of 17, he beat me up in front of the whole congregation and kicked me to the streets. And that's when I lived on the street. I joined the gang, and this was back in the 80s, the mid 80s, when the Bloods and Crips was heavy in Hawaii. Of course, it came from the mainland, and so I became part of that group. And being in the gang just made me feel like that was my family, because they made me feel like I was worth something, although it involved criminal activities, drinking, drugging, so I basically was lost, but I just loved being with them, and then a thing just led to another, committing crimes, small crimes, but it got too serious. My reputation in our gang was Matt was that tough guy, and I would always go out, drink, get high, and then beat up somebody, So that's where things started to turn for the bad, to where I was in prison at the age of 20, facing 2 life sentences for attempted murder and murder, and serving my time, going to trial. They convicted me of the lesser charge of manslaughter, and assault third. So they gave me 10 years, after hearing all the evidence, what wouldn't happen. I got released on parole in 1993, but still, stuck with a lot of those issues inside, inside my spirit of that anger and hatred. So released back to home, where the abuse started. So that wasn't a good thing, and I went right back to that life of drinking, drugging, and, the gangs. It wasn't until 1996 when a group of men from our church, where I'm still a part of today, Word of Life Christian Center, a group of men came to the streets, and they would come and witness to me and tell me about God. I already shared my experience, so I kept avoiding them, and drinking, getting high, just doing the same craziness, But finally, when one of my cousins who would come with them, I told my wife about it, and my wife said, well, nothing else is working. Why don't we go to church? So that is when in 1996, the pastor gave his message, and the words that still stick to me is when he gave that altar call. Is there anyone here who never felt loved before? And that's when I stood up crying, as big as I was, and cried and surrendered my life to Christ. So ever since then, things just started to change for the better. Still living with my father, as our pastor suggested me and my wife to go and support our father's church. So we went there, and then my father finally approached my younger sister, and he asked her, "Why is it only now your brother is doing God's work? When all these years, he prayed for me to do ministry." And that's when I said, "Well, tell Dad, let's meet next week, and then I'm going to answer that question." And so we met the following week, my father, my mother, and my two sisters sitting down. So I already had a plan of the video that my church did of me, of my testimony, because I still had that fear in me of my father always being a big man, and he was always bigger than me, so I still had a little bit of that fear, but that was the way I was going to respond to my dad. So we sat down on the table. My father asked that question, "Why is it only now, I'm doing God's work?" And I said, "Well, Dad, I want you to watch this video." So when we put the video on, we're all watching that, turned his attention. I started to share what I just shared of the abuse. My father was a pastor. He was a hypocrite. So I started sharing all these stuffs that really felt, deep in my heart. And when it got to the point where my father, being a pastor, never told me he loved me, that's when my father couldn't take it anymore. He stood up and he yelled at me and he said, "I told you I loved you." Then I stood up. I said, "Yes, Dad, but it was always after you were beating me up." So that was the first time our father sat down, and me and my siblings got to see our father cry. And he said, "Son, you're right. Let me tell you a story." And our father told us his story of how he used to be beaten by our grandfather, how he was a drunkard in the village and how he'd always get into fight. So for me, the healing began at that time, because now I understood that my father was only raising us the way he was raised. Yeah. So me and his relationship just got better. He started to hear more about my ministry. And that's when I told him I wanted to start First L.A.P, to house men just like me, to go through that same healing process that I went through. And he was in support of that. Yeah. So in 2002, I started that ministry, and things just started to get even better. And that's when God gave me a passion for our youth, to reach out to those who probably going through the same thing that I went through growing up. And so that's when God told me to start a ministry called the Peacemakers. Yeah, Peacemakers in honor of my victim, Marty Salavia, and my brother, Joseph Taufetee, who was killed in retaliation. So Peacemakers has been, around since 2004, where I was approved to continue to go into our schools, to witness to all of our students. I have a team, that goes in with me, Kehao being one of them. So we go and we share our life experiences, but how God was able to turn that around to make this new person that we are today. Yeah, so it's got to the point where the pastor who was my mentor at that time, he heard about me still working with the youth, and he called me in 2014. And he said, "Oh, Matt, I heard you're still working with the youth. And would you be willing to come to my church to share your story?" I said, "Yes, of course." And he said, "I just have one request, because your victim sister is one of my members and she wants to confront you." And of course, being obedient, to the Spirit of God, I went there, in 2014, and he basically gave an introduction, of my past history. And her brother is the one I killed. And he gave her the mic. And that's when she shared. She was in tears and crying about how much she hated me all these years, and she was hanging on to that for so many years until that morning. And she said, because she serves Christ, and he forgave her, she forgives me for what I did. So that reconnection there, and then she heard about my Peacemakers that's been going around since 2004 in honor of her brother and my brother. She joined our Peacemakers. Yeah, so the amends was made. that morning. And the following year, I received a Hero of Forgiveness Award,
Mhm.
and they recognize it at Kauai House Church. So changes started to get better. I continue, to help others and do this, at no cost. You
Mhm.
know, we volunteer wherever we're needed, yeah, to help our communities, to be healed, of a lot of the challenges that are going on.
I'd like to know a little bit more in depth of the story, if you don't mind, like a little how it started. The story that led up to this point, because I know we have some dates. When it started, the incident started. You don't mind just telling that story for that, so we can all like from the
Yeah,
very beginning,
I would say that um,
like what happened, how it
yeah,
started.
the first incident where I finally stood up to my dad, because I was one of those kids at church, at my
Mhm.
father's church. I would be picked on and bullied from all the other church kids.
Okay.
And I had that courage at the age of 10. I approached my dad and I said, Dad, these kids keep picking on me, and I was in tears. I was crying.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's normal reaction every time, I did that was he would smack me in front of the whole congregation, and that's when I no longer trusted my dad. Yeah. And so I grew up with a lot of anger, resentment, and I held on to that for so many years. But my father's church was right outside of this housing called Mayor Rights,
Yes.
and that's when I hooked up with those guys because they made me feel like I was somebody, not knowing that I had to commit crimes, drink alcohol, just to numb that pain. Yeah. So everything just led to that.
Also, wondering the story between how you serve your time and stuff. What was the guy's name and how did that altercation come about?
Okay. On April 8th, 1988, it was his birthday, Marty Salaville's birthday. So back then, I had some hookups. So, I bought all the beers, crystal meth, so we were all partying, up for 3 days, and then finally he approached me and he said, Oh, Matt, where's your brother? He was asking for my brother, not really knowing what went happen, but he was stuck in his mind that my older brother, Joseph, he beat up his younger brother, Mulu, and but it wasn't true. And even the other boys was telling him, no, that's not true. They were present, at that time. And so he kept telling me to call my brother, but I said, no, I don't want no trouble. And that's when he started to slap me around in front of everybody,
Mm.
and so I tried to avoid him, and then he ended up chasing me from his apartment all the way to my father's church because I ran home, I was scared. And when I ran, to my father's church, they just was having choir practice. So when I ran in there, uh, called my dad. I said, "Oh, Dad, this guy's out here. He wants to beat me up." And my father and the rest of the church members came outside, and they kept telling him, to please stop, to get away. And that's when he turned on our father, and he called up my father to fight. So of course my father's still telling him, you know, we don't want no trouble, leave the property. And that's when my mother, grabbed onto him and said, oh, please, go leave my son alone. And that's when he pushed my mom and my mom fell, on the ground. And then she kind of was in convulsion, to where she was just shaking, and that's when he walked down the street and he said, yeah, I'm going to come back and kill your whole family. And that's when he went back to the party, me, all crazy and in turmoil. I ran up to the house, and I grabbed the knife from the kitchen, not knowing that my younger sister, who was 6-year-old at the time, and she seen me take the knife. So as I ran back down, to the housing, um, my dad then just was pulling up, but by this time I already was there. He seen me. We ran towards each other, threw a couple punches, and that's when the knife, came out, and I ended up stabbing him 3 times. So the last picture I had of him was walking back, picking up the beer and drinking. So I didn't realize what would happen,
Mm-hmm.
but just knew that the policemen were going to come, and they showed up at my house. So as my parents were sitting down giving me the lecture, you can go to prison. I said, yes, I know, I'm sorry, but still, I was high, drunk, not really knowing all of this, what would happen. So sitting in the cell that evening, that's when policemen, they came to me in the cell and they said, Matt, here's your papers. And I was being indicted for murder. So he ended up dying, later at that evening. And so that's where everything happened. In the Samoan culture, which I never really understood, um, while I was in prison, one of the guards mentioned, Matt, I heard your name, mentioned on the news. You might want to come see this. So not knowing how it works, in the Samoan culture, they have this thing called the ifonga. Ifonga is a peace ceremony. In our village, or in Samoa, this is what they do when something like this, happens. So it showed my family on the news, of my parents, my mother, and my siblings, all bowing down in front of the victim's family, and just pleading for forgiveness if they will be willing to forgive me for what I've done. So I'm in the cell, I'm watching this, at one of the mods was at O.C.C. And I was just in tears to see my parents have to go through this because of me.
Mm.
So they ended up saying, yes, they forgive me for what I've done.
Oh.
Yeah. But 3 months later, they retaliated, and the younger brother ended up killing my brother. That same brother who he thought, that my brother beat him up. Yeah. So he ended up killing my brother. Yeah.
So you were sitting there. You did the whole 10. You did the whole 10.
No, I served
It's
5.5.
5.5. I'm
Yeah.
sure that's a little bit different than most people to sit
Yeah.
and knowing that. Did you feel type of guilt or something that you were responsible, or because the whole time in there you're like, oh shoot, you feel like what was that like?
Oh yeah, and I would say that's why when I got out,
Mhm.
I still was doing the same thing,
Oh,
because that guilt and shame I still felt, because now
Mhm.
my brother was killed, because of that, So everything that I started to think about, that's all I did was, I had thoughts of suicide.
mhm.
Even though I was tried for murder, they convicted me of manslaughter, which was 10 years. So out of the 10 years, I served 5.5 years. But when I got out, I
Back to
still
school.
hanging on to all that guilt and shame. So, what most of us know, that's what drug addicts and alcoholics turn to. Yeah, is that feeling to be,
Yeah.
good at the time.
Temporary.
Yeah, temporary.
Until you had a pastor ask somebody, oh, to want to be saved.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
was his name?
Art Sepulveda, Word of Life Christian Center.
He's still there.
Yes.
Oh.
Amen.
And so now today you're actually doing your own service, serving the people.
Yes.
What is your day to day? Is this every day or 5-6 days? What is this?
It's pretty much a 7-day a week job. Yeah. Because each client has, my cell number, and they can call me, anytime they need, when they're going through those challenges. Although many of them still have that pride issue, they don't call until they end up using, drinking, and they're about to be terminated.
Mhm.
So yeah. But
What is the chances, like out of 10, how much people, is there anything greater to find, because that's hard to forgive, also to forgive ourselves, huh? That whole thing. Is there anything greater that you think in our life that we can find forgiveness to move forward, or people live with it? What do you think in general, since this is you find a lot of people who need help? Yeah.
for me, when
Yeah.
I think about forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
the sacrifice that, the only perfect man who lived on this earth, yeah, Jesus Christ, when I think about how he was willing to sacrifice for his life, for a man like me, who don't deserve to be here, you know, that's what motivates me to continue to go forward. Yeah, the forgiveness of sin, and so that's what's helped me, every day. So my life today is just walking in forgiveness as I made amends, with my victim's sister. 3 days later, the younger brother heard of our amends, and so he called my facility, and
When was this?
this was in
Oh, some time ago.
2014.
Yes.
Yeah, so 3 days later he calls, and he just whispered, and he said, "Can I speak to Matt?" And I said, "I already recognize his voice." Yeah, because he was one of our younger boys in our gang. So when I heard his voice, I started to cry. Yeah, and I said, "I know who this is." He said, "Yeah, Matt, I heard you and my sister, forgave each other. So I'm calling you to ask you to forgive me." Yeah, of course, I'm in tears. He's in tears, and I ended up saying, "I forgive you. Yeah, I forgive you. I love you. You're like my brother today, So ever since then, because he was an adult at that time, and he ended up picking up another charge, 20-year sentence, so he maxed out in 2018. Yeah. So we made our amends, and all we do now is to pray for him. Although he's still struggling outside, probably the same thing that I went through, that guilt and shame. Yeah. But all me and the sister do is just pray for him. Yeah. That someday he's gonna find that the healing and the peace that we're praying for.
I think that the whole thing is patience, huh?
Yeah.
That whole patience, because even though that was a moment in time, but I'm pretty sure you have that feeling, because as I hear you speak your truth, your story, I'm like, kind of feeling this, like, oh shoot, I'm pretty sure there's more to it, and all that. And I guess every day we live, it's actually a gift, really. That's truly a gift.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it, but for most of us, is this, we think we have problems, though we don't, until we kind of sitting against our will, or something great happens. And you're like, now this may be the bottom. Now moving forward.
Right.
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 Jeez. What kind of projects you got working on to this day?
Currently, I'm the secretary for my home group, my AA group, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Secretary cuts checks, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. He's so minimizing what he does. He goes into the prisons Monday through Friday. He goes to YCF. He goes to Halava. He goes to Wayava. He goes to
Kolau Boys and Girls Home.
Amen.
Yeah.
So that's
the 7 days.
Yeah, that's what the 7 days are. And that's in between juggling. His building actually can hold 16 people. That's with that. Now my house has 12 people. Actually, right, it can hold 12 people. I have 9 right now. And so he does everything that I do. Like, he takes them to go get their IDs, their EBT, hooks them up with financial, all that kind of stuff. You so minimize everything you do. He's like, I'm a secret. No.
Okay, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's way bigger.
Good thing we brought you there.
Amen. But he's always been this humble man. Just do what I gotta do, right? Like 5 years. After he did his 5.5 years, he came back out, and so it was the church. So, and that includes what he does at the church. He's a life group leader at the church, so there's, he does a lot more than he says.
What's the most inspirational story that anyone that came from your house? Those are clean and sober houses, yeah?
Yes.
Well, first, what is a clean and sober house? Or how does that?
Basically, we provide a clean and safe environment. I practice the 12 steps, which helped me to heal from a lot of things, through AA. I have a sponsor, who's been clean little over 36 years. So I continue to be part of the meetings so that I can help a lot of our men, because majority of our men and women incarcerated is due to alcohol and drug use.
Amen.
Yeah. So that's why I really believe in clean and sober homes like us that really practices, all these things, the chances of them making it and continuing down that path, is greater.
Do you have a person in mind that a story you can share? His name and it's 30. That's the one you got. The 30 years he's changed.
Confidentiality. We
Oh.
cannot tell names.
That's an anonymous thing.
Yeah.
We're on the right podcast.
Yeah, amen.
We're on the right podcast. It's anonymous.
Like how we do in AA.
Yeah.
I can say his name and his last initial. Yeah. So Sam M is one of the guys I can say, turn his life around, because he knew me from the streets. Heavy gangbanger. Did some time, probably like in and out of prison, about 20 years. So just his testimony when he came to First Lap, and turned his life around. To this day, he's one of my mentors. Going through the peer support specialist. That's the newest thing we're doing right now. Is certifying them to be peer support mentors to men coming out of prison. So he's one of the only guy right now that's certified to do that. So his story, like how he turned his life around, he just stayed clean all these years, and the governor gave him a pardon, in 2016. Yeah. And just hearing the great things he's doing, so like he's one of the examples, I would say. He's on our website.
What's the website?
Firstlap.org.
Firstlap.org.
Yes. So he's one of them on there, but got many stories. And I would say in that one, this is where a lot of things I see with our Department of Public Safety, is where mostly sets up our men, I would say mostly our men, to rather than transform and change their lives, but pretty much setting them up to fail, because there's not enough programs for them to, deal with the issues that got them into drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So in his story, he would share in 2014 or 15. I don't know the exact year. Okay. So by this time, I was part of the Criminal Justice Task Force that Governor Ige appointed, ran by judges, attorneys, so when they came to me and they said, Matt, we heard you've been doing some work helping our inmates. Would you want to be on this task force? And of course, I felt honored, so they asked if they could come and visit my facility. So they came and visit the First Lap, and they just looked at how our men was just greeting them, real polite, and welcoming them. And then when they asked me, so where do you get your funding? I say, I never received any government fund since day one, because I don't want them to tell me I cannot talk about Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just amazed. Sad to say, they report to the governor, I believe it was in 2018, December 2018, they reported to the governor of how we should focus more on rehabilitation, programs, like First Lap. Yeah. So of course I felt honored, but the very next month, January 2019, Ige came on the news and said, let's start building this new prison. Yeah. So of course it was kind of discouraging, to a lot of us. But this group of men on the task force, they continue to stay in touch with me. They say, Matt, continue to do what you're doing, because one day, we're going to make this happen. And I can say right now, it's happening in a sense that Mark Patterson is part of this, so yeah, so getting back to that, Sam shared like how he called me up and he said, oh, Oos, I got some bad news. And I told him, what kind of bad news? He said, I just came from the doctor and they told me I need one heart transplant. So when I called my parole officer, they said I couldn't fly to the mainland. Of course, he was in tears crying, asking me if I knew anybody. So I made a call to that attorney who was on the task force. And they said, Matt, let me get back to you. Yeah. Less than an hour, he called back. He said, your friend can go to the mainland. So he got his heart transplant. And today, this is what he's doing now. So, that's something I can tell you.
Did that M end with an A?
Yes. Wow.
And then you said Us.
Yes.
So
Us is like how we say we respect each other as Uso.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Samoan, that's a brother. Yeah. A female to female, they would say Uso too. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because like for Hawaii thing, I get it. It's like, all the Samoans talk and they call you Us. We're all like, oh yeah, we're part of the Us. Yeah. So Us, hey. And let's see if that's the last name and stuff. Oh man, shoot. So 88 is kind of where was that 30 something years, kind of new life.
Yeah.
Your buddy, he had a new heart and a new clear mind.
Yeah.
To move forward in your stuff.
Yes.
I'm just happy because for me, a lot of people just going through life just got nothing to do. And this TikTok social media world is just so easy to get caught up in other people's thing. So it's kind of a blessing where people kind of step back and don't really get caught up in the phone stuff and just get grounded down to earth and do the real work, No disrespect from anybody doing anything in general, just that I think for the future, if the internet gets better and the technology gets stronger, a lot of people is going to get more loss, and we all need somebody to pull them out. And there's nothing much I can do or any one person can do, but those people I feel that follow God or the energy that type to actually help bring people back. So I am very happy and thankful for you joining us here today. And I hope, Kehao, is there anything else that because I think for the most part, unlike any other podcast that I'll ever do for the future, it's already like God got it.
Yeah.
God got it. It's just, I'm just hearing the history books. Like, hey, I got to interview Matt, got to interview Kehao.
Amen.
And then, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
And then hopefully see you guys soon.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Right on.
A few moments later.
Yeah, I said, Dad, you was a gangster. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so crazy. He was like,
And that son is actually named after my brother who was killed. Yeah. Today, him and his wife, they bought their own place in Makakilo. Yeah. So.
A lot of people on Makakilo, that's a little bit different. I'd say over here in Hawaii, Makakilo, and then you get the sea country.
Yeah.
Because in West Oahu, that's the only people you find people walking and jogging. Makakilo,
Right. Yeah.
You guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, no, that's just what I noticed. Because local if that's a word, local people just kind of wake up, coffee like that, and then
that's me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Local there you go.
I am local.
Local. Yeah. And if they're a little bit bougie
that too.
they open in a Starbucks line. The Starbucks line, they doing $5 coffee. What is this $5 coffie?
Oh yeah.
They have no problem with $5 coffee, but $5 gas they will not do.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not me. Because I don't like do the gas on the coffee. I walk straight to my kitchen. I'm good.
But what were you saying earlier off camera?
That's one thing I forgot to mention, that I was able to break that generational curse of fathers to their children, is that I'll be married 29 years to the same woman, on Monday, the 29th. We have 5 beautiful children, and I can testify that never laid a hand on any of them. Yeah. And So that's pretty much what I'm doing, in our prisons, for the men and the youth now. Now that I'm approved to go into our youth facility as well. So
You know what is so crazy, yeah? Is at one time he tried to apply at CWS and they wouldn't. And then 2 years later, I think they asked you, yeah?
yeah. Well,
What was-
actually, originally I wanted to open an orphanage because my passion always been for kids, but they wouldn't allow me to do that. They kept saying, I wouldn't be good, which I understand, because of my criminal history. They didn't think I was good. And just doing all this work up until 2018, I was able to meet the head of the Department of Human Services, and his assistant knew me and heard what I was doing. I was at detention home, counseling our boys 1 hour for our boys, 1 hour for our girls, and when they told them that I was the guy, they offered me the job to work for Child Welfare Service in 2018. Of course, I brought it up to my wife, and she says, "What?" I said, "Yeah, pretty much I can be set. I'm doing that. But God called me to this ministry, and this is why, I had to, deny that. But I just look at how God works in my life. The heart is
Yeah.
there. Yes.
Actually, yeah, I have something similar. It's like when I try to make plans, it does what it does, but it's already been mapped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Already been mapped out. It's
Yeah.
like, so you look back, it's like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
I guess kind of reminds me like when you have like planting,
Mm.
and then the seed is like in the ground under the dirt,
Yeah.
and then 3 days it just rises up and sprouts, and then from that little sprout it will be very fruitful.
Yeah.
Amen.
But you need that watering.
Yes. Yeah.
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 If certain soil don't work, no good. You gotta get a new light. You gotta get a new, what was that word? Like generational gap. You gotta, hey, stop. That don't work. Try this.
Mm.
And then able to help.
Yeah.
Jeez. But yeah, you have any more pictures too? What's that? We didn't go over your pictures. Is that part of this podcast too as well?
Yes.
Oh.
This is where you can tie the first lap where with the video that
Mhm.
Kehao, showed first lap, and then towards the ending where the peacemakers involved. This is where you can share. This is it actually in Molokai. I forgot I went to Molokai when I
Yeah.
told Kehao, I said, oh, okay, this was a school that I went to years ago.
That's so
But
crazy. At the end of the month, we're going back again.
yes.
You guys going back?
Yeah.
Molokai this month?
Yes. The
Yeah. On
29th.
the 29th, 30th, 1st, and 2nd, we're going to assist. We went 4 months ago. Well,
That's back home.
yeah.
Yeah.
We went 4 months ago. And so we've been keeping in contact with Molokai Drug Free Movement. So we're assisting that island in trying to offer recovery to the people there, to our people
Yes.
there, right?
Because
Yeah.
the
So-
suicide rate up there
Right.
for our teens is
What is it
crazy. I think we had like 5 suicides this year so far.
this year?
And
Yeah.
that's only 6,000 people. And
On
it's
that
all
island right
drug
now?
related.
Hmm?
Huh?
What was that again?
It's only 6,000 people on that island.
Yes.
It's drug related.
Mm.
So suicide should not, you know what I mean? That shouldn't be an option.
I have family in Molokai.
Mm.
I have family in Molokai, like all my dad's and mother's families from Molokai. And I understand that's different. Like on this island, Hawaii Island. Oh, this is not Hawaii Island. This is Oahu.
Yeah.
But I understand that over here is like a little bit slow so far as the lifestyle.
Mm.
Kind of laid back. Just go work, come home, party.
Yeah.
And then we go a little bit Kapolei and further Pro City side. It's a lot more quicker, a lot more faster.
Oh yeah.
I find it so strange.
Mm.
But the one thing is certain that in Molokai that is really slow. Like it's not slow. They don't get me wrong, but slow like it's more grounded. Like the moment you get off the plane, you touch your toes on top of the ground. It's like this is Molokai.
Mm.
You don't hear nothing. You don't hear any train track. You don't hear no loud
Wow.
noise. You don't hear no plantation. You don't hear no noise. Is this? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's different, yeah.
Yeah.
The energy is this
Yeah.
so
It's
different.
way more spiritual. When you
Yeah.
walk off the plane, it's way more spiritual. And so that's why we're going back at the end of the month is we're gonna do we're reaching out to the kids again.
Mhm.
And then we're doing our camp out like how we do down here. because they don't have a recovery over there. Got in recovery, they just, you know what I mean?
I think we only had like one person who was doing AA up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're bringing up meetings and hopefully pulling people out to want to do meetings. There's a lot of people don't do meetings. And really, if you got nowhere to go, you're going back.
Yes.
So
this is one of the quotes I would say that sticks to me. When Father Greg Boyle in 2018, he invited me to come to his organization, which is Homeboy Industries in L.A. Yeah, he runs the biggest gang intervention, drug rehab in the world. So Father Greg Boyle has been doing this little over 33 years. So he invited me. He said, Matt, I want you to come up there to share with my boys and girls. But the quote that I remember him saying, and this is what helps me to continue to do the work. And his quote was this. He said, the wrong idea has taken root in the world. The idea is this. There just might be lives out there that matters less than other lives. And me, that sticks to me because I remember when I was that kid, I felt less than. Yeah. And that's what I see now, like what we're going to do when we go up there. A lot of these kids feel like less than. Yeah. Parents either in prison, addicted to the drugs, and so they feel less than. And so providing this, place of healing is what Mark Patterson is doing in HYCF. He's having me work with the boys. So Friday I go into HYCF, work with our incarcerated boys, helping them to, heal from a lot of the stuff. And majority of them I spoke to already. They say, yes, their dad kicked them out of the house. They're living on the streets. Yeah. So all this stuff is trying to bring, them, to heal from that and know that they get in a safe place. So I interviewed one of them last week. So he's coming to First Lap. Yeah. Because they max out at 19. They no longer take, boys, after 19 years old. So now we're just another resource where they can come, a safe place for them to be. Yeah.
And that's the thing with people in recovery, right? We all get one story.
Yes.
There's a reason why we walk that walk. It's not like, okay, we woke up one day and said, oh, I want to use.
Yes.
No, we were numbing something that happened to us as youngsters.
Yeah.
And so that's why we do it the way we do it.
I think one thing I like to, hopefully I don't go too far back, but I trying to bridge the idea that it took your guys' darkness to be that giant light. Yeah. Do you feel you guys might be potentially robbing the idea of creating champions because you saved them for a young age? You see what I mean? You were in a dark place? No?
No.
Not gonna happen?
No. I had 5 counselors when I was 16 years old. I went to my first treatment center when I was 16 years old. I never hear them till I was about 30 something. What was told to me back then. So as long as it's been said, they're individuals themselves. They're going to do what they want to do. But know this. We grew up in the DARE program, in the Just Say No program that introduced the drug to us, told us all about it.
Interesting.
Told us not to use it. Yeah. But we is the kind of generation that needs to know why. Why? Okay, well, why behind this, we get rape happening. We're making them look all good. Oh, I get chicken skin. We're making them look all good fun. Yeah? It's this generation that was making them look good fun. Well, I was 16 years old, right? So now it's going to take, we had to live through all this. Okay. It took a whole generation to live through all this to explain to our little ones that, hey, this is what it's all about. Because we only had the teddy bear program. We only had, you know what I mean? And what he was supposed to do. Tell me about no stop fires. Come on. Tell me about no just say no. Just say no to what? Now I like try. You know what I mean? Now I like do them. And because they look like they're having fun, I'm like, why not? They look like they're having fun. Dad, you don't know what you're talking about. Ma, you don't know what you're talking about. They did. They just never know how to explain them. Now you get a generation like us that is explaining to that generation. But really, they're going to do whatever they want to do. but they're going to hear them. Even if they hear them years later, it's okay. It's okay.
I just know when I go Molokai, and when I go Molokai, that's the only over here Oahu is like, oh, you guys party, cool. Molokai is a different type of party. Molokai party 3-4 days straight.
Oh yeah, like Mexicans.
And a lot of times when they party, I don't know if Mexicans,
No, for
but
real, that's
yeah,
where
they
I got my
party.
roots from.
Yeah.
And I see all the little children having a good time. Little children having a good time watching their family. I think that's what you're trying to say, yeah?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
little kids are running around
Exactly.
2-3 o'clock in the morning
Yes.
while
Exactly.
the parents like look like they're having a good time.
Yes.
Don't do
Right.
drugs, but they're doing it too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I could see that I was very unfortunate that my mom and dad they don't drink, they don't drive, so I wasn't able to see that till I was later in life. Then I got to see how people party, have a good time, and then the kids at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning running around, and just having a good time too.
Yeah, no, well,
Yeah.
we step out. Yeah. So we were groomed without our parents even knowing that.
Yes.
We were groomed up to become them.
Yes.
Now I think like my mom.
Mm.
Now I act like my mom. Even my mom is wrong. How she was raised was wrong. That,
Yeah.
that whatever happened to her, like he was sharing earlier, whatever happened to her carries on to me. Yeah. She was molested. I was molested.
Yeah.
Now she get issues. She get issues. I get issues. You know what I mean? But the issue got to stop with you. And that's what recovery does for me.
Got it.
And so every time somebody goes through a traumatic incident in their life, you got to recover from that. You got to recover from that. And that's what recovery is. And that's what we practice. That's how we help with the healing.
So it's better if we don't plant those seeds and we don't have to, you know what I mean? They wouldn't have to go through all this. Everybody just do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, but they don't. So we do need to plant this.
Because when you guys folks go Molokai, is to plant the ideas and the seeds in their heads to be inspirational. Like, hey, you don't need it. Or you're going to end up like us. But you guys became good people. That's actually, you know what I'm saying?
So no worry,
Mhm.
we're gonna be replaced as soon as Kehao and Matt got clean.
Yeah.
As soon as Kehao, Matt, and Ernesto got clean, boom, we was already replaced.
Yeah.
Guarantee we was already replaced with either somebody in the system coming out, or somebody's kid getting raped, or somebody's kid getting molested. We was already replaced. This is an ongoing epidemic. It's never gonna end.
Is there a solution?
Places like ours that actually care, like really, really. It's one thing when you're coming out of jail. I know I can speak for myself.
Yeah.
When you're coming out of jail and you're coming off the disease, you're coming out of. I was this time I was using, this round was like 5 years, 6 years. So that whole time I was using, I lost. Whatever society had to teach me, I lost. I was standing at one gas pump one day, and I would pick up a nickel, and I was like, "Oh, I thought this nickel was like super, super old." Okay, the thing was born in 2020, but I never seen that nickel. That's how gone I was. So we lost that. Like somebody normal in society would have been like, "That's a 2020 nickel." For Kehao, she didn't know what it was. You know what I mean? So it takes people like us to show what it is. Because they're coming out into one society, they don't know. I remember somebody giving me a cell phone. My nephew actually made me feel really stupid. I came from flip phones, right? He gave me, and this was 2012, he gave me one cell phone. I said, "What the hell do we do with this? Where's the buttons?" Imagine coming out of 25 years looking at, "I'll I borrow your phone?" And you get that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Imagine being that.
I could actually, I was there for you guys block phones. Because I never had one, but I seen it. So when I saw those block phones, and then we had the flip phones, and then I had the Nokia 33s, then the flip phones, would have the buttons, then these things came out. And I saw it slowly accelerating. You know what I mean? Like now, how you guys consume the content, how I consume content. Imagine these younger ones, how they consume content. So right
Yeah.
now, 2022 moving forward. I'm not sure it's damaged, but the information's being consumed is a lot more stronger than generations.
See, and that's something. Somebody coming out of incarceration,
Mhm.
you talking Chinese right now to me. I don't understand. And I've been out 6 years already. You know what I mean?
But you're very active on social media.
Yeah.
You're more active than me.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I
see the
want
value.
people to know it can be done. They know Keha was walking on the side of the road. They know Keha's house was in trap house. They know Keha's house is on clean and sober house. They know Keha's walk. So they know Keha is doing it. You know what I mean? They know Matt is doing it. They want to try and do it too. By all means, let's go.
So to answer that question,
Yes.
as far as the solution,
Mm.
this is the big movement that's going on in our prisons right now. So peer support specialist, that's the movement that's going in a
Peer
prison.
support specialist.
Specialist, yeah. So when you get chance, it was approved by SAMHSA, yeah, and a group from Oregon came down here in 2019, went through that process, and so it's basically people with lived experiences turn their life around, go through these courses, and now they're mentoring another inmate. Just like what I just told you guys, Sam is the first male right now, besides me, that's certified to be a peer mentor. So this is the big movement that's going on in prison. And because my partners are so humble, they really don't, tell too much people, but they work in a women's prison and our youth facility. So I'm the first male that was certified, and I want more people to know about this. So that's the big movements going on in a prison. So that's what I'm trying to break right now. As far as the men's side, with the women, we had a warden that had that passion to help them to heal, and that's that man, Mark Patterson. Yeah. So we just need leaders like that on the men's side so that they're going to open doors for that.
Don't
Yeah.
you know right now, YCF, no females.
Yeah.
YCF.
In May, yeah, Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility. Most of us know it as called our Boys and Girls Home. But in May of this year, he was interviewed on the news, and he made history to where there's no girls incarcerated, locked up. And it's because of his group, 12 Foundation. They go in there and they help these girls to heal from a lot of that stuff, like what Kehao said. Looking at statistics, in the women, correctional, over 80% of them shared of their life experiences. Majority of them have been sexually molested. So for them to heal from that is why the recidivism rate is so low, because of the program, that Pool Foundation did for them. So when they come out, they're connected to people, they get employed, and they do all these great things, and we still together. Yeah. But we don't have that for the men. Yeah. And that's one thing I'm endeavoring to do. Yeah. And just staying faithful, get surrounded by other leaders, like my pastors and mentors. It's going to happen.
Yeah. It has to happen. It's working. That's why.
But you
I
just
had
think
to
of
do
that
it.
concept of,
Right.
what you gonna tell me?
So
You
history
might
has
have
already
your
happened.
masters,
Yeah.
your master's
Right.
CSAC, but if you never lived it, I know
Then don't
most
talk.
guys they're gonna look
Yeah.
and say, "Oh, what do you know? What can you tell me? You never experienced that."
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I said this is the big movement. When somebody else look, they say, "Hey, yeah, I know you've been through it," so they can relate, and that gives them more of that hope of saying, "Oh, yeah, I can do it too."
So it did happen. It's not for the men's yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
And-
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually like going into the women and the women not going back in. Me, I had to do this thing called credo for heal. Yeah. We rip
One
my
of my-
guts out and
One of my members,
Yeah.
does that every year.
So praise God, because we saved somebody else from getting raped. I noticed one girl that actually used to wipe crap her feces on her body so they wouldn't touch her. And if we could stop that from happening, then by all means, it's a good thing. Yeah.
That's a lot of different stuff right there.
Amen. But that's who we work with. That's who we work with. And
That's a different world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Way.
Regularly, we just got like Game of Thrones, Chicago PD. So we're watching, or they are watching other people's problems and getting entertained. Well, some people, that's a real story.
Actually living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people are trying to cope or trying to look for the door, help.
Yeah.
We are, as in the people today, are being entertained by that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
that's sad.
So that's harder.
Because
Yeah.
it creates a different illusion.
Yeah. Because we think we're watching, we think we're being entertained, but we're actually being educated into how to murder, how to how to consume those type of those things. And that's just one of those things to add, right? Trying to be positive, trying to look for the right things, but we're just bombarded with negative stuff.
Yes.
I was actually flowing through Netflix, right? That last night. And I just wanted to count the times I saw a devil or darkness or evil, killing. It was all day. I like, then I'm trying to keep a tally and how much things was good. It's all bad. And I was thinking to myself, is this coincidence? Is this like, are we being programmed? Or is this something that's entertainment? Is this what they're entertaining, or is this what they're paying for? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we're all subject to absorb it. It's like on the day, everywhere. And then thinking about where is the positive in it all. Positive came from a lot of darkness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every lesson is a blessing. Every mess is a message.
Cause for most people, they play Fortnite, they play Call of Duty. So now say, how much kills you got? I got 100. Yeah, 100 kills. Not really noticing that you do, but it's there. The vessel of darkness is already there. It's been programmed.
Yeah.
And we have more negative stuff than positives. So since you shared information with me that it has been historically done, then that gives me faith, hope. What is the other word?
Yeah.
Faith, hope, all those good words to say that it's going to happen in my generation.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was hoping I would see flying cars in my generation. I don't think it's going to happen.
No.
Nor the moon,
Okay.
nor us going to the moon. not my generation.
Yeah, I know.
But at least we can solve the problem because historically it's already done.
Amen.
But on that note, thank you guys for coming again,
Yeah.
sharing with me, and
Thank you,
hopefully we
guys.
pick up more
Thank
when
you,
I have
Kevin.
more information to ask and stuff. Thank you.
Amen.
All right.
Thank you, Kel.
You're
Have a
welcome.
nice day.
Thank you.